Hey guys, Josh here, and last week there was a Nintendo Direct, and one of the announcements that got me the most excited was the addition of the expansion pack for the Nintendo Online service. So if you get the expansion pack on top of the NES and SNES games, you'll also get access to N64 as well as Sega Genesis games. And in this video, what I would like to do is just talk about which games I would like to see added to the lineup of N64 games. They've already announced which games are going to be there at launch and other games that will be added in the future. So I'm going to start by just going through the list of what they've announced and tell you my favorite games in there. And then after that, I'm going to go in the list of games that I would like to see added on top of these ones. So on the launch date, we're going to get The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, Mario Kart 64, Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario, Win Back, and Sin and Punishment. They also mentioned that they were adding online multiplayer for some of these games. So I'm so excited to be playing Mario Kart 64 and Mario Tennis in multiplayer. These are actually two of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64. Super Mario 64, I love this game, but I do have the Super Mario 3D All-Stars thing, so I kind of already have it on the Switch. Ocarina of Time is great. I can't wait to play this again. Win Back, I've never played this game. I've never heard of this game actually, so let me know in the comments if you've played this. And Sin and Punishment never came out outside of Japan, and I also never played this game, so I'm looking forward to this one as well. And then a little bit later, we're gonna get Mario Golf, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, Pokemon Snap, F-Zero X, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, Paper Mario, and Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie is probably my favorite platformer on the Nintendo 64. I think I like it more than Super Mario 64. Paper Mario is a great RPG. There was not many RPGs on the 64, but if you're looking for one, you definitely should go for Paper Mario, and I think it still holds up like graphically, and even in terms of gameplay. This game still looks so beautiful, and it still plays so well. It's still a great game, so I can't wait for this one. And Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. It's actually a little bit sad to say, but it's one of the last Kirby game I've played. The Kirby games that came out more recently were a little bit underwhelming, so I'm super excited for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And I'm assuming they're probably going to release Kirby 64 before the new Kirby comes out, so people can get more hyped up. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the games that were already announced. So now let me jump into what I want to see. So these games are not necessarily the most popular or the most well-rated games. They're just my personal favorites, the games that I've played in my childhood that I really liked and that I want to play again on the Nintendo Switch. So let's start. And I want to start with the very first game that came to mind when thinking about making this video, and that is Snowboard Kids 2. The first one is great as well, but the second game just makes everything better. And if you don't know what Snowboard Kids is, think of a snowboarding game like SSX or 1080 snowboarding mixed with Mario Kart. As you go down the slopes, you'll get some presents with items inside. So in the red presents, you'll get things to throw at your opponents, such as a bomb or a snowball that will turn them into a snowman. And in the blue presents, you'll find things such as a rocket, which will boost your speed, the ability to become invisible for a short time, or a pan, which will crush all three of your opponents. And while the pan can be a bit annoying, one thing I like about Snowboard Kids is that if you're skilled, you can avoid most of the items just by jumping at the right time, so it really rewards good players and doesn't feel unfair. Most tracks in this game consist of 3 laps, so once you get to the bottom of the slope, you'll have to get through this little gate to catch the lift, which will bring you back up for the next lap. Especially in multiplayer, this tends to get crazy as there can only be one player at a time entering the gate. And if you push each other, you're gonna fall down, and I do have memories of being the first during the whole race, but really messing up there at the end near the gate and just ending up last because I kept falling down. And this can sound frustrating, but it's so much fun, I swear. And also, most tracks are not what you would expect from a snowboarding game. So there are 2 tracks with snow, I think. The rest is just completely insane. You'll race on the beach, in a castle. In one track, you're tiny and you're snowboarding around a house. Every track is so different. You'll even go to space, and in some tracks, the characters will even wear different outfits. Also, after each race, you're gonna go back to town, which has shops to buy new snowboards. So each snowboard has different stats, and you can also paint them in different designs. There's also a school where you can switch between different characters, as well as fun challenges, such as a trick challenge where you have to do as many tricks as possible and get lots of points. The speed challenge where you're late to school and have to get there before it starts by using as many boost items as possible. And the newspaper delivery minigame where you have to throw newspapers in mailboxes. This one is quite hard, but it is my favorite. And there are also some characters to unlock and overall just a lot of content and things to do in this game. Oh, did I mention that there are bosses as well? The first one is this big snowman and you have to throw bombs at him, and it's just a lot of fun. This game is so fun, especially with friends, and I would love to play this on the Switch. I would also love a sequel to this game. I know there was a Snowboard Kids on the DS, but it looked quite different, and I just want a proper Snowboard Kids 3 on the Switch. Please, that would be a dream. That would be so good. I want the Snowboard Kids 3. But let's go to the next game. So Bomberman has always been one of my favorite game characters. He's iconic. He's so cute and badass at the same time, and I always wanted to have him as a playable character in Super Smash Bros. But I know that's not happening and I'm super disappointed, I'm super sad. But I love Bomberman, and my first experience with Bomberman was actually not the classic multiplayer Bomberman experience. It was actually the Nintendo 64 games, which focused on the single player experience, and they were platforming games. There was Bomberman 64, Bomberman 64 The Second Attack, and Bomberman Hero. I have great memories with each of these games, and I would be so happy with any of them coming to the Nintendo Switch, but I decided to pick Bomberman Hero for this video, which was the last entry on the N64. This game is split in 3 different areas, each with a selection of short levels, where you'll have to collect some crystals and power-ups, and you're gonna throw bombs at your enemies and jump on platforms, and yeah, just a classic platformer with some Bomberman action. One thing I liked about this game is that you had different gadgets. So in some levels you were underwater, in other levels you were actually flying like a little helicopter, and it really spiced up the gameplay and every level felt different. This game was a lot of fun, but honestly it's been such a long time and I don't remember it all that well. I'm really hoping any of the N64 Bomberman can come out to the Switch, and if that doesn't happen, I just hope we'll see some platformer Bomberman games again eventually. I think the last one was maybe Bomberman Jetters or Generations on the GameCube, which was such a long time ago, so we've been waiting way too long. Please, I want another platforming or like action Bomberman, just like a single player Bomberman experience again. Alright, so game number 3. Everybody loves Mario Kart 64, of course, but the Nintendo 64 had quite a few kart racers, and Diddy Kong Racing brought a lot of innovations to the genre, which really makes it stand out. Let's just talk about the cast first, as it's usually what tends to sell a kart racing game. So this game, when it came out, only had one known character. Of course, it's Diddy Kong. All the other characters were original at the time, and Diddy Kong Racing was their first appearance. However, later Banjo and Conker ended up getting their own games, but this is where it all started, and all of the characters look pretty cute and charming. But what's really fun about Diddy Kong Racing is that there's an adventure mode with a hub world which you'll have to explore and collect balloons that will allow you to open some doors and get access to new tracks and challenges. It's a really nice way to just take a break in between races and just roam around and explore. There are also 3 types of vehicles in this game, so there's car, hovercraft, and plane. Each of them will not only let you access different parts of the hub world, but most importantly, you'll get to experience most of the 20 tracks in brand new ways depending on the vehicle chosen. So for example, if you go through one track with a car and then you do the same exact track but with the airplane, it's gonna feel completely different, so it's gonna feel like a brand new track. And yeah, 20 tracks plus the variations depending on the vehicle, that's a lot of different tracks even for today's standards. You can also see modern games such as Sonic All-Stars Racing Transform taking inspiration from the different vehicles types, which really shows the impact Diddy Kong Racing had on the kart racing genre. The items also work a bit differently than Mario Kart. Basically, there are 5 different types of balloons. Each type will always get you the same item, however you can make this item stronger by getting up to 3 balloons of the same type. For example, if you get 1 red balloon, you'll get 1 straight missile, 2 red balloons and you'll have 1 homing missile, and if you get 3 red balloons in a row, you're gonna get 10 straight missiles. So you can really add up your items like this to make them stronger, and this removes the randomness that tends to occur with items in other kart racing games, and it does add a tiny bit of strategy where you have to think, should you use your item now or should you wait and get a better item? So yeah, I like this. Oh, also, I almost forgot to mention this again, but just like in Snowboard Kids, Diddy Kong Racing has bus races, and they're all super fun. Overall, Diddy Kong Racing is an amazing game, and seeing that Banjo-Kazooie will be available on the Switch eventually, and that both games were developed by Rare, I'm hopeful we might be able to play Diddy Kong Racing on our Switches in the future. Also, since they're adding online multiplayer to some of these games, by the way, I just can't believe we're about to play N64 games online, but Diddy Kong Racing would be a perfect fit for that. Alright, so this next game is a little bit different. It's probably the game I've played the least. In fact, I've only played it a few hours, and it's the only game on this list that I have not finished. Mystical Ninja 2 starring Goemon is a pretty interesting one. There's also the first one on the Nintendo 64. They're both great, but I'm picking the second one for this video. This game is a 2.5D action platformer, so most stages are played in 2D, but you'll sometimes go in towns and villages where you can move around freely in 3D. In these towns, you can use your money at some shops to buy food and armor, as well as a tea house where you can switch between your different characters. Each character has different weapon and abilities, and this game is hard, like really hard. There's a reason why I never could finish this game, and it's because I just kept dying. And when you die, you get this ridiculous game over screen, and this game is actually ridiculous all around, all over. Actually, the cutscenes and dialogues are funny. Some of them are voiceover, by the way, which was pretty impressive for the time. But this game is just over the top, and that's what makes it fun and charming. It also includes tons of references to Japanese culture and folklore, and it's really worth taking a look at. I just realized I didn't talk about the gameplay much, so basically you just need to go to the end of each level without dying, but it's filled with enemies and you die after 3 hits unless you have some equipment, which is what makes it hard. Some levels can be quite long, and even though there are some checkpoints, if you're game over, you'll have to start from the beginning of the level. And basically, each character has a short range attack and a long range attack. But to do the long range attack, it will cost you 1 coin each time. There's also a day and night cycle, and at night the monsters will be replaced by these ghosts. And they're super annoying, so most of the time I just waited until it was daytime again. Overall, this game is far from being perfect. It has lots of flaws, but it has fascinating characters and story. And even though it can be frustrating, it's still fun, and I'd like to give it another try and hopefully beat it at some point. And for that reason, I'd like to see it available on the Nintendo Switch Online. So, the Nintendo 64 was filled with 3D platformers. The first ones that come to mind are mostly Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, but there are so many more, and Rayman 2: The Great Escape is one of them. I remember playing this game on the Nintendo 64, but I also played it quite a lot on the Nintendo DS as it was ported to a few different consoles, and I just had so much fun with this game. The stages are a lot more linear than in Super Mario 64, for example, but you're still encouraged to explore every little corner as you'll save these little cute characters called Teensies and collect looms, which are little light orbs, and there are 1,000 of them spread all around the different levels, and of course you'll want them all if you're a completionist. There's also a pretty good variety in the different stages, and some of them can be quite challenging, and it's just so rewarding when you complete a stage you've been struggling with for a while. And with the game's checkpoint systems, it doesn't feel frustrating, and you can just give it another try and get better. I don't know if it's just because I was probably like 10 or 12 years old when I played this game and I was just not good at video games, but if my memory is right, I'm pretty sure this game's a lot more challenging than other platformers on the console. I'd really like to see this game available on the Switch, and I would just love to see 3D Rayman make a comeback. And I'm pretty confident that if you've enjoyed Rayman Origins or Legends or any other recent Rayman 2D game, you'll have such a fun time with this one. Alright, so now if I had to only pick one Nintendo 64 game to be available on Nintendo Switch Online, it would be Harvest Moon 64. This is the first video game I ever owned, and it made me fall in love with the Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons series. Harvest Moon 64 is the second entry in the series, and it's still one of the best in my opinion. Even though it's lacking the quality of life features we expect in modern games. For example, you'll have to open the menu every time you want to take out an item, which gets very tedious when you're shipping your crops. However, all the basics of the farming sim genre are here, so you can grow crops, raise livestock, you can do mining, gathering stone and lumber to expand your house, participating in festivals, getting married. Surprisingly, there was quite a lot to do. The game can be quite challenging, especially if you compare it with more recent Story of Seasons games. For example, if you want to complete your photo album for a perfect ending, you'll have to meet lots of requirements, which can be a little bit tricky. Or if you forget your chickens outside one day and there's a typhoon the next day, they're all gonna die. That's what happened to me when I streamed this game a few months ago, and I forgot just how cruel this game could be. I also think that this game aged extremely well. Its art style holds up in my opinion, plus the characters are all very charming and interesting to interact with. You just gotta add the catchy seasonal music on top of that, and this game's atmosphere is one of the best. My favorite track is probably the fall one. It's so good, and even though it's very short, I don't mind listening to it for a whole month in game. I could probably go on longer just talking about this game. It's so charming and it's simply one of my favorite games of all time. If you've never played it, it might feel a bit lacking compared to modern farming games, even though I think we can say the same for probably all games on this list. But I really recommend trying it out and I hope to be able to play it on my Nintendo Switch. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it for the list of games I would really love to see on the new expansion pack for the Nintendo Switch Online. And if that doesn't happen, I just want more games similar to these games, maybe some sequels or things like that. So please let me know guys in the comments if you agree with my list, if you think I forgot some game, or just let me know what is your favorite Nintendo 64 game in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'm gonna see you all in the next video.